Hello, and welcome to What Moves Us, the podcast where we ask, what moves us? Or more accurately, what's going to move us in future?
We look at debates, themes, and decisions of the minute that will impact on the way we get about in the future. Welcome to What Moves Us podcast. We have with us on the call Liam, my Rail Innovation Group chum as usual, and also our guest, Tara. Tara, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Tara Walsh. I'm project manager and I look after the Innovation Acceleration Forum as part of capital delivery within Network Rail.
And how long have you been at Network Rail?
So been in this role for about 8 months, 9 months, but actually been within Network Rail for 10 years now. So, and held a lot of different roles within that, in resourcing, HR. I've been the operations manager at Birmingham New Street, project manager. I've been on an external secondment, which was just amazing in the West Midlands Combined Authority. So that was really eye-opening. So done a lot of things in that 10 years, and which has been really exciting.
So being a stations person, I would love to take you on a rabbit hole down Birmingham New Street, but I'm not going to.
Definitely a rabbit hole, that's for sure.
So I'm sure what our listeners are going to be looking for is what about your current role and what does it actually mean being part of that programme?
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. The role that I undertake, so I look after a forum. We have about 18 members that attend a meeting. And I'll start with who those members are, because then that'll make all the other pieces fit together. So on that forum, we have all the regions represented across the capital delivery portfolio. We also have our technical authority standards come along. We have procurement come along, but we have some industry partners as well. So RIA come along, Catapult come along, DFT come along, TRU are a part of that, and a few other people. So we have quite a diverse forum.
I just want to interrupt you there because there was a lot of acronyms there, and not all of our listeners might be aware of all the acronyms, because I think the last one I wasn't.
Okay.
TRU.
TRU, yes.
Yeah, so the Transpennine upgrade, that's TRU.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously DFT, Department of Transport. Then we've got who else we have in there? RIA, the Rail Industry Association. What other ones? I think Catapult is just Catapult. Sorry, TA was the Technical Authority. If I said TA rather than Technical Authority. You're right. This, and I think that's one of the huge challenges with this industry. Even moving around this company, sometimes I've worked in one part of the business, and what the acronym stands for is very different to another part of the business, and I use it in a completely wrong context. And
I think that's particularly the case if you work across capital programs and construction, and then have railway acronyms as well, because there are a few that have similar acronyms or the same and mean two different things.
Yeah.
So I think it's always good to be clear on what they are.
Absolutely. And it's good actually to be called out on it, because we don't call people out on it enough. And then we miss half an audience, whether we're at a conference or however, but people rarely call out the actually, right, let's take a step back. So thank you for that.
We often have in our Rail Innovation work the SME we use, and we just assume it means small medium enterprise. Most people listening seem to think it means subject matter expert. So
okay, all right.
You're gonna have to write it down, or find a different way of saying it. But yes, it's good to be clear on that.
Yes.
What took you into innovation acceleration?
Well, I just kind of fell into it, really. I'd done an external comment, and I was the head of Grand Rail collaboration, and part of that was working with lots of different stakeholders and try and get everyone moving in the same direction. So that fits very nicely, I think, with the innovation, particularly in such a complex business like Network Rail, where you're having to deal with lots of different stakeholders and trying to drag people in the same direction. Sometimes that's what it feels like. So I'd done my external comment. I'd kind of come back, and I was a bit of a comment queen at that point because I'd done lots of different comments. And the role, my substantive role, was a long way. I hadn't been in that role for a very long time. And then someone said to me, we're looking for someone to fill this role. And I just said, you know what, that's right up my street. Little did I know the complexity that I was walking into. But I thought, yeah, great, some great ideas. We'll get them put into place. And that was it. That was the simplest form I thought it was going to be. How wrong was I? So it was just the right opportunity at the right time, really. But the more I've got into innovation, the more I've almost fell in love with it, because I am learning so much technically and I don't have a technical background at all. And I'm speaking to so many people in this business that I didn't even know existed. So it's been great.
So is the sorry, my idiot's question, but is the point of the Innovation Acceleration Forum to speed up adoption of innovation, or to speed up delivery with innovation?
So a bit of both. Depends what the innovation is, I would say, and where we are with it. So one of the reasons we have people like the technical authority, standards, procurement on the forum, so that they can navigate us through challenges, but also we can start to predict them from the get-go. And if our procurement colleague says, right, this is going to be a problem because you want this amount of investment, but actually it takes us over the threshold and we have to go out to tender, so we have to find our way around that, then we can start working on that before we get to that point. So what we're trying to do, is speed up the process, because as we know, it can be really challenging, one, to even get a sponsor, to get through to the right person. Everything can just take so long. So if we can help you get to the right person, tick. If we can then say, okay, well, actually this goes against the standard, so we need to be looking at that standard. So is it that we need to involve the standard owner into that process? Tick. So we can navigate our way through it through the experience and the expertise of the forum members. So so the whole driver is to speed that process up, getting you to the right person as quickly as possible. But before that, is probably really important that we're making sure, is this a product that we want? That's really, really important. And having those open and honest conversations, which says, this is a great product, but we already have this, and this actually doesn't fit our model, or actually doesn't give us anything that we've already got. But if we can be that transparent, and I think any of the suppliers that I've said no to, I would hope that they would say that was a good experience, because they got feedback on why it was a no. They understand where our position is. And sometimes they will go away, re-look at their model, and then come back to us. Great. But you can't do that unless you know what the problem was or the blocker was in the first place. So I think that transparency at the beginning, which means that if we can stop any innovation being looked at that doesn't have legs, then we free up more time to put into the innovations where we think that actually, yes, this is a brilliant idea, and we can support that innovation going forward, whether that's a trial, whether or not that's to get product acceptance, whatever that is, and whichever avenue that we need to take. But fundamentally, we want to speed that process up if we can.
I think that's really interesting, that whole feedback loop. on, you know, sort of, you know, whether something goes forward or whether something gets rejected because it's the wrong product or it's the wrong model or whatever. I mean, I think it'd be really interesting to explore maybe, you know, in general terms, you know, sort of like an example of that feedback, you know, where something has been successful and gone through, and so that's speeded up the innovation, or where something has been rejected for a number of reasons, sort of, you know, because quite often you don't get that feedback, do you?
No. And I think that's one thing I hear all the time. I was speaking to somebody and then it just went quiet and we've heard nothing. And I get quite a few innovations through. I have that feedback from the supplier or whoever's put the innovation in. I make sure that for every innovation that comes in, I have a call with that person. One, because I need to make sure that it is in the right format. And this isn't, and I want to make this really clear, I am not there to make a technical look at it in a technical way at all, because I don't have a technical background. And obviously in capital delivery, it's so wide anyway. There is no one person that's going to be able to deal with all that. But what I am looking for is, can I understand what they're trying to say in the presentation or the submission that they've sent us? But the other thing is it scalable, which is really important, I think, to small and medium businesses. I have spoke to a lot of startups where, when we've actually worked out, for instance, you know, if it was about bridges, do you really understand how many bridges we have and whether or not that's a viable product for us to undertake? Is it about the mileage of the track? So if you're saying that we need to put something every mile on the track, you know, once we start to scale that up, is that actually viable as something we can do, something we were going to pay for, etc. So just understanding those basics. So for me, it's, are we going to save money? Are we going to save time? And is the product sustainable? And if you can get past that bit, and because I can understand that bit, if we can get past that bit, then from there, I would then go on and find the expert who would then tell me what we're currently using in the business. Because again, I need to compare that like for like. That's not an innovation. And then, but at all those points, I'm going to go back to the supplier, even if it's to understand what that timeline is. So if I'm then saying, okay, so now what I need to do, so if it's for safety and security, or let's say security, I would then go to my security experts and say, right, this is the product, have a look at this for me, and then tell me what we've currently got. I will then use that information to then feed that back to our supplier and say, look, they've said this, that, and the other. This is the feedback they've given us. But actually, they're saying it doesn't sit with them. I now need to go to someone else. So if I can keep that timeline going so they know there's still progress happening in the background. And, you know, we talked about the fact, you know, we're accelerating this, you know, this is the railway. And even at an accelerated pace, that can feel very slow, I think, to particularly suppliers who are able to work at pace. Particularly small entrance level businesses, again, who will be putting all their time and energy into an innovation or a product. So we say accelerated, and we worked really, really hard to get that, but understanding those timelines and understanding the enormity of this business and how big it is, but constantly feeding that back and constantly having those open and honest conversations. And people really appreciate that, because I don't think we're not good at that. And I think that's an industry thing. We're not great at feeding that back.
So do you find yourself asking sort of, I want to say frank questions, but like, is there really a reason why you don't want this? Or is it just you like the thing you already have?
Absolutely. And that's the great thing, you know, about not being technical, because I can ask the stupid questions. So I can say, so they can come back and say, I'm trying to think of an example. No, this isn't going to be of benefit. Okay, well, why? Tell me why. Tell me what we're currently using and why this is no good. Or I might get we've trialed this and it didn't work. Okay, so what did you trial? When did we trial it? Where's the outputs of those trials? And if you can give me that, then fine, I will let it go. Because again, I don't want to waste people's time, but I also don't want to be just told to almost go away, because that isn't fair on our supply chain. It's not fair. Well, it undermines my whole process if that's what we're going to do. There has to be an appreciation, though, from my side, that people across the business have so many priorities. They have so much pressure on what they have to deliver. And innovation is coming at everybody from all directions. So as much as absolutely, I am questioning what we've done, where we've been, because again, that feedback is so important to suppliers to make changes and do things differently. But we have to, we absolutely have to question. I have to question what they say to us. But on the other side of it, I have to appreciate that I might be one of 10 people that have approached them this week about innovation, and not just internally. So obviously I've probably got a little bit more airtime because I'm internal, sorry. But I do really appreciate that. And I do give them time to respond. But I also say, look, if you haven't got time, please tell me who has, and I can go to them and try to get the information and try to work with people to do it. It's not like this is your responsibility. If I work like that, I'm just not going to get anywhere. And I want to be able to reuse those experts for other innovations that come through. So I have to, so that really understanding where we are as a business is really, really important. And the priorities that they've got. Innovation isn't always their priority, even if I can save them money or time, because eventually I will save them money or time. But if I give them a new product, for instance, got to train everybody, we have to do, initially that isn't going to save them time. Actually, it's more work. So I have to appreciate all that.
So innovation is really challenging. I know spoken about, quite a few, time, from both sides, new processes, sort of like having to learn new ways, and that even just developing what the innovation is and that. But are you starting to see any successes and in changing the way you're, acting as this conduit and involving people, and how do you know when you will be successful in the long term?
Yes, I think one of our biggest challenges is people knowing we exist, and we're starting to get so. Like I say, I've only been in the role about 8-9 months. However, the Innovation Forum has only been going probably for about 18 months, and it's fair to say the first 9 months there wasn't the innovations were coming from the forum members. There wasn't really much advertising or anything like that. So we have some great products that are in trial. We've got some products that have come to the end, and we're just doing up the business cases. So we've got some really good stories there. Absolutely, we could probably look at maybe sharing those case studies with you, and that might help anybody looking to come to Network Rail with their innovations. So success for me comes in several different ways. So the first thing is that obviously we get people approaching us with innovations, and great innovations that excite the panel and the forum members. When I can see, so when we put an innovation in front of the forum members, and not every innovation is going to tick a box for every single forum member, because obviously they deal with such a wide range of products and services. But when I see the forum members all kind of back straight, head tilted, and that really listening into what's going on, I know I've got a product that everyone's excited about. And that for me is a success when I can get those people in front of the forum members. I think for me, the biggest success, but also one of the biggest challenges, is getting to a point where my internal colleagues look to us and say, what have you got coming through? We're not there yet. We're getting there. And I think having that dialogue throughout the process is helping that. Ultimately, our success is going to come from saving money through uptake, saving time through uptake, and our sustainability through the uptake of the products that come through, proving that quickly, navigating through the barriers. So there's lots of successes. If I can get a couple of successes with every innovation, I am happy, because this business is so complex, and I think I probably underestimated that as far as innovation is concerned. I think one of the successes we've already seen in the industry, I would say, is the fact that everybody is taking innovation seriously. And I am seeing from across Network Rail, people taking up the mantra of saying, what else can we do? How can we do this differently? But we only know what we know. So we have to get people to be coming to us and flying that flag. And I think through all the events that I've been to, all the people I've connected with, we're starting to get that out there and saying, come to us. And where we can, or where I can, even when someone comes to me and they need to navigate their way through Network Rail, being able to assist somebody to say, well, you're not an innovation, so it's not something we can look at, but maybe you need to do this, and help people along the way. And I hear from external partners all of the time about how difficult Network Rail is to navigate and approach. And if I can give people that route into Network Rail, I think that's a success for the company, I would say, for us to be able to do that and build those relationships, because I think we can be in danger of people approaching us and we're so hard to navigate, they just give up.
Yeah.
Even if
You're doing
really
careful, because you'll get 400 people message you after this.
I know.
The sole entryway to Network Rail.
Yeah.
So, that kind of led on to another question, which was about what had surprised you in the role. Would you say it was the complexity, or would you say it was something else?
So I'd say it was the complexity, but I would also say the thing that surprised me most, I think, was how open people are to innovation. I think we're in this really messy space right now where there's so much innovation that we don't know what to do with it, and we don't know which ones we should be doing stuff with and we shouldn't be doing stuff with, and who's doing what. And I think it's a bit of a muddle at the moment. But that has been recognised, and we're working our way through that to kind of pull everyone together and make sure that, for our suppliers as well as internal, to make sure we're not duplicating, etc. So that is being worked on. But I think how open people are to doing things differently, and we've got pockets of teams within Network Rail just like flying with innovation and want to connect as a whole business in what we're doing, and being able to shout about it, which I think's fantastic.
At the beginning, said you've been at Network Rail 10 years. So you'd have seen sort of like, Network Rail transition and lots of change during that time.
Yeah.
And then you sort of like got the complexity of Network Rail and difficult to do business. And I guess really, sort of like, have you noticed, any change in that? Because if you were to sit from a startup or a small medium enterprise point of view, you'd probably say, no, it's not changed at all. So are you noticing that change? Because everybody's talking about it, so the culture's changing. But equally, what would you say, sort of like would make that change, in terms of culture from what you see from other businesses that do it better?
Yeah, and I think we definitely are at a point where the whole industry is looking inwards and saying, how can we do things differently? I think that's helping. I think funding has changed around innovation, which again I think is helping. But I think it's become okay to do things differently, and I really do think that is changing, because people want to, well, they have to save money. They have to save time. We've got less resources, and we've got more to do. So it is inevitable that that the world needs to change. But I do absolutely see how externally you can look in and say, I'm not seeing those changes, because where we may have only had two people come to us with innovations. I was speaking to a colleague who I sent an innovation to on a Friday afternoon. He actually picked the phone up to me on a Friday night, and basically said, he said, I've already brought it up with the person he reports into, because he said, these are just coming at me. He said, and you're probably 20th person this week that's come to me with innovation. Why? Where's this come from? Why have you got my name? And all that kind of stuff. And so I think the need for innovation has increased. The push from outside inwards, and the fact that I've got to appreciate this person's got their day job to do. They cannot review 20 innovations. So because then you just become blind to innovation. Then you just stop looking at them, because it's just overload. So I do see how it's changing internally. I think at all levels we are seeing people say, let's do it differently. How we do it differently is where with the big question mark, I think, it comes. How do we navigate that? And how do we get that through a very complex business? Which then says, okay, so when we adopt it, if we get one region adopting a way of doing it, how do we then get other teams to adopt it? Or how do we even get the message out that this is what we're doing and this is how we do it differently? So I think, but fundamentally, whatever meeting I go into, and most of them are about innovation, but that people are talking about it. They're talking about different ways of doing stuff, and I think that is a massive culture move for Network Rail. And don't get me wrong, there's some challenges in there as well, where people don't want to do things differently. Let's be honest, change management is a whole subject on its own, and is very complex. So
it's all hard, but who do you see doing it well, that you can sort of like say, these people over here are doing it well and we should be like learning from them?
So of course I'm going to say the Innovation Acceleration Forum are doing it brilliantly. And we're learning as we go. I think I'm seeing from my R&D team, they're doing it brilliantly, and they're talking to lots of different people. So R&D, research and development team, and they are really linking in across the industry internally, and with anyone that they can get funding for, but not for Network Rail funding, so they can support people through their journey of developing new products. So I see them doing it really well, and it's great. So they also sit on the panel, so that's fantastic. So they can feed that information into us, what's coming through the doors, but we can lean on that. So when we get people come in and they're just a startup and they're saying, okay, well, you know, we need to develop this product. This is a great idea. We can then go to R&D and say, is this a great product? Is this, you know, is this something you would want to invest in, etc. So I would say they're doing it brilliantly, and we work really closely with them. But obviously, I'm going to say top of the chart here has to be the Innovation Acceleration Forum.
Right. It's been absolutely fascinating. What would your top tips be to someone who's either got an innovation or thinks they've got an innovation, or is struggling to have it adopted?
Okay. So I think if you're pulling something together, really think about the scale of what you're coming to Network Rail with. So is it your product or service can be scaled up? And really understand the business that Network Rail is. So just do the basics. Like I say, if you're saying that we need to put a product on a bridge, really understand. I mean, it is basics, but really understand how many bridges we've got, how many miles of track we've got, where we cross over onto the highway, all those kind of things. Just look at that, because I think that's really underestimated. And some of that comes from experience of some of the conversations that I've had before submissions have come in. So I definitely would say that. I would say your submission to Network Rail, you need to sell it in. So, you know, why do we want it? You know, what is it going to give us? You know, so use it as a sell to us. Lots of times I see presentations where they talk about the product, and that's great. But it doesn't tell us, you know, what is your unique selling point? What is it that you're going to give us that no one else is going to give us? And try not to bring us like for like products. So why would we buy, you know, a new service that replaces a service? Sell us a service that replaces 3 or 4 services. You know, there's the efficiency. Tell us, you know, so but that has to be not all our suppliers make it in front of the forum. You know, some of them do, and that's where they're really complex and we invite them in. So that presentation pack or that information, a bit like your CV, that's the only thing someone sees. It has to be on point. And I have helped suppliers, again, not with the technical bit, but just to make sure that we formulate it in the right way, so that when the forum members, anyone within Network Rail, looks at it, they get all the information that they require from those packs. So that would be the other thing. I would say if you are looking for adoption, where potentially you have already, you know, got your product out into a region, everybody is using it, but then no one else knows it exists around Network Rail. Now that's a harder challenge, and one that I come up against all the time, because there is no distribution list for innovation, and obviously it depends on the product to who you need to approach for innovation. And I would really like to say I've solved that in the last 8 months, but I haven't. I just have not. And I had a conversation the other day with an internal colleague and she just said, I'm so glad that you have the same problem, because I feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall. So that is harder to navigate. And finding, but I think what I do in those instances, one, use the forum members in order to work out who the right people to be approaching. So is it really our frontline colleagues? Is it I don't know, the storeroom folk? Is it I don't know who is it, our asset teams or whatever. So to understand who I should be approaching in order to get that take up, and also working with our suppliers to say, okay, so what are you sending out? How are you getting people's attention? And again, if we have a product that's already product approved or we've trialed or whatever, it's really good for our I see over and over again where people are sending out packs, and those packs are like 10 pages long. Again, let's go back to the scenario where someone's got 10, 20 innovations coming through per week. They're just not going to read it. Give them a one-pager that tells you that this is a product you could order, this is why you want to order it, and this is why you want to start using it, and what support you'll give them in order to make sure that the teams are using them. So scaling almost your information down, but making it really punchy, and also giving, if you want more information, then come and see us. So I think there's lots of things we can do. I don't think I think it's still a massive challenge in a devolved company. I think there's always going to be a challenge. Yeah. So that's probably how I would, but that's very different for every single innovation that comes through, because obviously our door is open to capital delivery innovations, and that spectrum is so wide that there's never one pathway for everybody.
It seems to me that if some of the advice that you're giving and people are companies are approaching you, then they want to be clear on what the problem is that they're solving, for you. It's got to be done cheaper, it's got to be done more efficiently or faster, and it has to be scalable.
Absolutely.
So thinking about the market that you're selling into, and how many assets you have, and how that gives some thought to that market of what they're selling into.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a much more efficient way of saying it.
Yeah.
That's because I was listening. much easier when you're listening to do a summary.
So I guess the last question is, how do people get in touch with you and your team?
So I will send you the QR code.
I think it'd be really interesting to see if you do get loads of people contacting you as a result of the QR code going live.
What have I done?
And actually, I think it would be interesting as well to do a follow-up maybe in a few months' time on what that led to, on how what came through, what sort of things came through, and what was successful, what was not.
Absolutely happy to do that, and I'll log what comes through from now. But yeah, brilliant.
All right, thank you. That was absolutely fascinating, and I learnt a lot. And now I know who to talk to.
The door's always open. I might not be in, but the door will be open. No, it will be open. I'll be there.
Thanks for listening to another episode of What Moves Us. We hope we moved you. For more episodes, you'll definitely want to subscribe to our channel.
Until next time.